morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and welcome to an extra special edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm joined here by co-hosts Tony Robinson and Darren Woodhead, where we welcome a guest who was born in Accrington and attended Peel Park St. Christopher's, now lives on this side of the pond in New York. He spent some time with Accrington Stanley, as well as a couple of other football league teams in England. Let's welcome to the show Neil Edmonds. Thank you for joining us today, Neil.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I know I've been lining this short for a while, and we know about you starting off in Accrington. Born in Accrington, I believe. That was the first starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Born in Accrington, I believe up on Royd's Lane there. Is it Oakley Nursery? I think that's where I was born. Obviously,
yeah.
Didn't really remember that experience, but apparently that's where it happened.
Yeah, and I mean, my first game across you, funnily enough, I was looking at some medals when lockdown, plenty of time on his hands last year, and I was looking at medals, and I seem to have quite a lot of medals with football and cricket, and not being particularly good myself, only just been managing to get into teams. I was trying to work it out why, and I think it's mainly because we had you and Graham Lloyd in the same team, didn't we? You were both good at football and cricket, both them annoying kids who were good at everything. So you managed to... I think we won everything when Peel Park. I know, albeit the largest school, and football and cricket tournaments, etc. But yeah, that's where your footballing career started off.
It was, yeah. I mean, the Peel Park junior team there was, we had some great success both in football and in cricket, like you said. I'd probably argue I was better at cricket than Graham, but I'm sure he'll disagree with that. Obviously, we went on to different paths there. Obviously, he followed his dad and went the cricket route and had some great success there. I kind of chose the football route and enjoyed some moderate success with that too.
Yeah, we'll come onto that in depth soon and how it all started off.
Yeah, hi Neil. This is Tony. I'm up in Toronto. Actually, geographically, I'm probably the closest to you than the other two gentlemen on the line. So.
That's right.
I just wanted to, before we get into the question, I wanted to ask you how good of or bad a football player was Darren? Because he was a good football player.
Definitely not. Very average.
I think that, looking at some old school photographs, I guess the best way to gauge how good Darren was at soccer or football was the sort of how high he pulled his shorts up on his chest. If you look at some of those old photographs there, he's riding pretty high. So,
there were some classic kits.
There was the old green and gold, right, or whatever it was at Peel Park.
Yeah.
But no, times. What were you more of a defender, Darren? I can't remember.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
had a central defender, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
His dad said he was a left back, but left back in the changing rooms.
Yeah, that's about right.
Exactly.
I was making the numbers up. A steady Eddie.
Yeah, right. No, I don't think so. We scored a lot of goals in that Peel Park team, so it didn't really matter, how much of a sieve Darren was at the central defender role. So yeah, that's how we overcame that.
Yeah. Seem to remember us having a very small goalkeeper. I know that. Flanagan, Michael Flanagan, yeah. Very good, but very small. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that was a fun time.
So getting on to when your career really kicked off and you managed to get a football league club, Oldham Athletic, was that when you straight from leaving school, Neil?
Yeah, it was. Left school in 1985 and, went straight into being an apprentice with Oldham Athletic. So I spent, I think almost 3 seasons there, if I remember rightly. It was a fun time. It was right before they obviously had all their success and went into the Premier League there. But, still stay in touch with a couple of those guys. Obviously some of them went on to some really good success. Nicky Henry, we were apprentices together. Mike Flynn went on to, he left for Norwich from Oldham. and then came back to Preston North End, and then spent a lot of time at Stockport, I believe, and had some real good success there. So it's a fun time. Good memories from back then. Obviously got to work under Joe Royal. Willie Donachie was the number 2 there. Really good team.
Willie Donachie he's at Stanley now. He's Willie Donachie involved with the youth setup. Yeah,
he is. I did not know that.
Yeah, he's part of the academy. Awesome. Yeah, and he looks he's still in good nick for his age. Yeah, it looks like he's keeping well.
Willie, I don't think he'll ever be unfit. I was probably one of the fittest I've ever been in my life working under Willie. He's really fixated on that, the fitness aspects first, in a good way, not just run into the ground.
Yeah,
definitely.
I know what you mean.
Really nice guy.
Then you moved on to Rochdale to get first team football, I believe, didn't you, around about that time? So, we struggling to get in the side due to strength of squad, etc. And then you had to move to Rochdale to get first team football.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I was kind of breaking into the first team, made my debut and played in some, cup games and things like that. And then, Joe Royal, being as shrewd as he was, managed to snag, he went to Leeds and poached some of their players who weren't quite making it at the time. The Andy Linnegans of the world, the Dennis Irwins, the Tommy Wrights.
Yep.
And, obviously we know what happened there. I mean, Dennis went on for just an unbelievably successful career. Andy Linnegan obviously went to Norwich and then went to Arsenal and had a pretty distinguished career there too. Tommy Wright's still in the game, I believe, on the coaching aspect. But it's hard when you're competing against people like Dennis Irwin at right back. It's tough. Kind of had to. It was funny. I actually went up front, started playing more of a striker's role. Just got put there coincidentally against Rochdale in a youth cup game, and I don't know. I can't remember how many I scored. I think it was like 3 or 5 in that game. We routed Rochdale youth, and Rochdale came in after that just to get me on loan. I went there initially to get some experience, first team experience. And Danny Begara was the coach then, and really, really good guy. Obviously, he went to Stockport after that and had a lot of success at Stockport.
Yeah, he did.
But so he kind of, I kind of fell for the, come and play for Rochdale, have some success. And so I decided to make the move then. And then Danny went and left and got the Stockport gig. Which happens a lot in football. It's a lot of luck sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
Right time.
Yeah, there are small margins, aren't there, between it? Yeah,
definitely.
Then I believe, Neil, in 1990, you went to over to Sweden to Karlskrona AIF in Division 1, I believe. How did that come about?
So Terry Dolan was the Rochdale manager, and to say we didn't see eye to eye was probably an understatement. And so a scout came in from Sweden and just, hey, why don't you come over for a trial? And I went over and actually had a really good experience. So came back. They wanted to sign me for the season. So Terry let me go on a free just to, before my contract ran out, and just said, hey, go on a free, go and play in Sweden and see where the world takes you from there, kind of thing. And I kind of jumped at it. It was really nice money at the time, a good standard, and obviously, who'd give up living in Sweden for a year as a 20, 21-year-old. It was a pretty good experience. Made a lot of friends. Had a fun time there.
And it's I think the football season in Sweden is quite similar to here in Canada, where it goes sort of spring to the fall. Is that correct?
It is, yes. I think I initially went on like a trial week. I think it was maybe February, and they were kind of mixing indoor with outside on an all-weather pitch. If Darren's probably familiar with all-weather pitches, before AstroTurf came in the UK or in Europe, there's this wonderful sort of really loose shale, hard, compact. You know, if you went down on that, you lost half your kneecap kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they before the season started in Sweden, they train on that kind of thing. So I went on for a trial. It went really well. I went as a striker, believe it or not. I had a really good time there. It was a lot of fun. Good time. Good memories. Definitely.
Well, I was looking on the notes for the show, and I was watching the Mexico-Canada football match last night, and they played in Edmonton, and it was -14 with the wind chill and snow drifts all around the pitch. And I'll tell you, those Mexicans didn't look too comfortable playing, but I'm not sure if that had any impact on the result. But it goes to show you that in certain countries you just can't play football in the winter, and obviously Sweden's in.
Oh yeah, it's just way too cold. It's kind of ironic because when I was an apprentice in England, there's a big thing, the youth coaches, you God forbid you put long pants on in training or long sleeves, you get absolutely slaughtered, right? Well, get that long pants off, get out there, do some more running, God forbid you take a drink of water halfway through the game. What are you doing? But in Sweden, when we were playing our pre-season games, they were these kind of like sort of knee-length jodhpurs under, above the shorts, and then long socks. And I was like, I'm not wearing those, So I got changed, and I had just a regular kit on, short sleeve shirt and just shorts. And they're like, no, Neil, you have to wear these. I'm like, I'm not wearing them. Just never worn those kind of things. Just run faster, And, but no, they actually made me wear them. It was kind of interesting. So definitely a little culture shock there.
Yeah, definitely. So would there have been a plastic pitch? Well, we'll call plastic pitches over at Oldham when you was there as well, Neil?
Or AstroTurf.
Yeah. I think Oldham's pitch could have been definitely classed as plastic.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
it was one of the early ones. I think QPR had just got theirs, and then Oldham got theirs. My first season at Oldham was the old grass pitch, and I don't know if you remember. There used to be quite a slope on Oldham's pitch. That got leveled out when they put in the AstroTurf, and then when they actually took it back to grass. But yeah, I think I took a piece of the old grass home, and I was staying in digs at the time, because when you're a 16-year-old apprentice, you live with a family. And here's a present. I took him, a 3 foot by 3 foot. So, they were lifelong Oldham fans, and they were like, "Oh my god!" They're like, "Shit, we need to buy a lawnmower now."
Yeah, you could have sold it on eBay these days, couldn't you?
Yeah, I know. Right? I know.
Yeah. So you've obviously been in pro football, and then you drifted into non-league football and started getting in the real world, didn't you, Neil? Yeah, so how did all that come about? You started doing a full-time job around that time, didn't you? Yeah,
well, before I went out to Sweden, I bumped into Walter Joyce, who at the time was, I think, the youth coach at Preston, and he's always followed, loosely what I was doing as a youngster and that. And he's like, "Why are you going out to Sweden?" He said, "As soon as you come back, give me a call." So I kind of went to Preston on trial when I got back, and I ended up getting a middle ear infection and lung infection. It was weird. So it didn't quite work out. So Walter said, "Just go and play for Chorley at non-league. Get some match fitness." He said, "If you impress, you'll be getting back in the league before you know it," kind of thing. So I was doing that, and we actually played against Stalybridge Celtic, and I ended up having a great game. The other centre forward at the time was, his name was Ross, I think. Brian Ross. I don't know if you follow.
Vaguely, yeah. Yeah, he was Marine, was he? Played for at one time, yeah.
Exactly. So he left Chorley and went to Marine, and he was just a really good non-league centre forward, and me and him kind of run riot against Stalybridge. We beat them. Stalybridge were up there in the league, and Phil Wilson, who managed them at the time, contacted me shortly after and said, I know you're not signed on permanently with Chorley. Would you be interested in coming to Stalybridge? We've got a good chance of winning the league and having some success. So, I did. I went to play for Stalybridge, and actually, stayed there for quite some seasons. We got promoted to the conference. We had a really good run, and it's such a great squad, great set of lads. Just a lot of fun, and worked hard, and just really we did really well. But during that time, I was saying that the centre half who I gave a real good routing to when I played for Chorley, his name was Paul Dixon. He was actually a firefighter, and me and him ended up becoming good friends at Stanley Bridge. And I tell you, still to this day, you won't admit that I gave him the run around that game, but it's okay because he ended up helping me get into the Greater Manchester Fire Service. So what I did for pretty much 8 years, I was a professional firefighter and played semi-pro football at Staley Bridge. So the two really worked well together, just because of the shift systems and all that kind of fun stuff. So it was a good time in my life. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they were a good team. We were at Staley Bridge around that time. Top non-league outfit, weren't they? I mean, I remember Accrington playing them, playing in the cup. I think you were playing for Staley Bridge then. But yeah, they were a good side.
Did we get beat?
Yeah, I remember. It was a bit of an upset. Right? Yeah, it was a bit of an upset at the time. We were a couple of leagues below you. Yeah, I rember coming over and winning. Thought I'd just remind you of that one. It was a good occasion. Yeah,
I think that was the only time I actually played against Stanley, competitively. I think Cash was playing, Ashley Hoskins.
Yeah, around about that time. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think Grimmy was playing.
Paul Beck was playing, I think. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm most interested about is that you spent some time in India, I believe, in East Bengal, if that's how it's pronounced. So how did you end up in India? And I know that there's some huge crowds and things like that over there. What was it like playing in India, and how did you end up over there?
Yeah, I mean, India was just an incredible experience. So before I became a firefighter, I started playing with Staley Bridge. An old scout that had kind of kept in touch with my dad, of all people. He always kept in touch with him from my youth. He said, "Hey, I don't know what Neil's doing right now, or if he's interested, but I have an opportunity to play for one of the top Indian teams. They're based out of Calcutta. The name's East Bengal Club, and it was kind of just a 3 or 4 months short-term contract. It was their off-season, but in their off-season over there at the time, they went and played a bunch of cup competitions. So they got to Delhi and play like a 2-week round-robin competition in really old, famous cup competition out there. And, you go to Mumbai, play one there. We had one in Calcutta. And East Bengal were the current Indian champions. So they actually were, the time we were there, they played their Asian Cup games, which is the equivalent of, obviously, the old European Cup.
Okay.
Side. So we got to travel, we traveled to Bangladesh. We played, Dhaka. We played them home and away and beat them. And then the next round, we got to play it in Japan. We played a team called Nissan out there. This is obviously back in the early 90s. We traveled to Japan. We were in Tokyo for a week. We played the game. I think we got beat like 5-0, something like that. And then played the home leg.
Well, that had to be a great experience, just getting to travel around and see all of those places.
It was, and the best thing was we played at Salt Lake Stadium in Calcutta, and that's a 100,000 plus stadium. And quite often, especially the big games, there were 100,000 people there, and it was just
wow.
It was like walking out at the kind of the new campus. It's like an open air stadium that just held more than 100,000 people. Like some of the big college football stadiums, like Michigan. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now,
that is definitely.
One thing I wanted to ask you about it is I've got a good friend from India, and he basically told me that cricket is the big sport in India, but then football is kind of up and coming, and at some point will hopefully overtake cricket. Would you say that was kind of what you saw, is that football is rising in popularity over there?
Like I said, this was the early '90s when I was there. If you're playing in front of 100,000 crowds at that time, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a minor league sport in the country. But everywhere you looked outside of the stadiums, any spare blade of grass, people were playing cricket. I mean, cricket's huge in India, obviously. I don't know if it'll ever supersede cricket, just because they've now got the IPL going, and there's a lot of big money, big draws, big players go to India now in that league. So I think cricket's probably going to keep at the forefront as far as popularity, but I don't think football's too far behind, especially if they're still drawing crowds like that.
Yep.
Yeah, those are some incredible numbers with 100,000. I don't, other than maybe with the national team when they play Mexico or something like that, I don't know that we ever get crowds like that over here. What do you guys think, Tony? Can you ever recall a crowd of that size over on this side of the pond, Tony?
For 100,000?
Yeah.
Not that I can recall. I think they've had some football. I think didn't the Cosmos get 7?
Oh yeah, that's right. That was a real big one with the Cosmos. So that was one thing I did kind of want to ask you, and I know we're getting a little off track here. We'll come back to this later, but what American sports do you follow most closely, Neil?
I love watching American football, or football, obviously, over here, as they call it. Baseball. A lot of people watching on TV here. We actually lived in Boston for the first 13 years that I lived here in the States. I've been here pretty much 20 years now. So I moved to Boston in January of 2002, which I don't know if anyone who follows American sports and I've heard of a guy. He's pretty good. He's a quarterback. He's called Tom Brady. 2002 was the that was
so you're a Patriots fan then.
So I'm, as Darren will attest, and in England, you pick a sport, you pick a team, you don't really change that. It's you don't just willy-nilly say, "Oh, I'm a Liverpool fan today," and then next year Chelsea are winning, so I'm a Chelsea fan now. That just doesn't happen in the UK. So like I said, I lived in Boston for 13 years. It was my first port of call, so to speak, in the US. Just so happened that the next decade I lived there, every single team won the major trophies, right?
That's right.
The New England Patriots. The Red Sox broke a 80-year voodoo, right, or whatever it was. 2004, they won the World Series, which was just phenomenal to live in Boston when the
Red
it was
Sox did that. 85 years, because it was 1919 to 2004, and I remember watching those games. And now I'm not a Red Sox fan, but I'm a Yankee hater, so I was very happy to see that, and so Curt Schilling, obviously pitched here in Arizona, which is where I'm at. So those games when he had that bloody sock, I mean that's just iconic stuff. That
So I was right in the middle of that, and Fenway Park, which is obviously the home of the Red Sox, is just such an iconic stadium. In this world of mega stadiums, and everyone's building bigger and better, the fact that they've kept Fenway pretty much, true to how it's been for years. It's such an intimate stadium. It was just so much fun going to those games. I don't really watch baseball on TV. I'd much rather be at a stadium like that watching it. So when we lived in Boston, we used to go Probably that's the American sport I followed most when we lived in Boston. Now we're up in New York State. I still watch football. Sundays over here is a big day for. It's actually my wife. Loves me right now because the American. You wake up basically with 5 hours behind, obviously. So I wake up on a Sunday morning and all the Premier League football's on in the morning, like literally 7:30 in the morning. You can put a live game on. And then as that sort of, the sun sets on that, then all the American football starts as well. So,
that's
he loves Sundays.
That's my Sunday too. Except I'm on the West Coast, so sometimes those games will start at 5 or 6 a.m. and then the American football and I'm a NASCAR guy too. So I mean, sometimes I'll have all three going. But what you said about Fenway Park, I kind of want to go back to that because that is really one of the only stadiums here in the U.S. that it's probably as old as some of the stadiums in the UK because that stadium is over 100 years old now, and I think that and then Wrigley Field in Chicago are the only stadiums still around that have been around for more than a century here.
Yeah, agreed. It's if anyone's traveling home from the UK and they hit up Boston, I would highly recommend trying to get a game in at Fenway. It's just such a good fun time.
Well, let's go next to what has become the most popular segment of the show, and all the credit on this goes to Tony Robinson because he came up with this. I want to say closing in on 2 years now that he came up with it. It started off with just kind of some North England versus South England questions, and then we added in some music and entertainment. And now I understand that Tony also has some special questions here for this both sides of the pond episode. So I'm just going to turn it over now to Tony for the now world famous rapid fire.
Thank you, Phil. Always the shortest introduction ever. I wanted to. Neil mentioned about the sports on Sunday, and I'm obviously in the same boat as him because we're in the same time zone. I have been to the old Boston Gardens, and I did see Boston play there. So, but that's my only sporting event in Boston. But I know when over here, like he says, the NFL is huge on Sundays, and I'm a little partial to the Bills right now because they're close by and they're a team that we follow. But anyway, this version, we're trying to do something to see. I wouldn't say U.S. versus U.K. It's more of a question of how Americanized are you now, kind of questions. Since you've been over 20 years. Do you still like mushy peas or garden peas?
Mushy all the way.
Red or brown sauce on your bacon sandwich?
Brown.
And which bacon do you
each and every time?
Which bacon do you like? Do you like English bacon or the American bacon now?
I mean, the English bacon's so tough to get over here, and if you get it, it's razor thin. So, let's put it this way: as soon as I get back home to Accrington, when I visit home, one of the first things I get, if it's around lunchtime, I'll hit up the chippy and I'll get steak pudding chips, mushy peas and gravy, plenty of salt and vinegar on. I mean, literally the first thing I do, and I get pretty angry at my mother if it's not waiting for me and I have to go and get it myself. I'm like, I told you I was going to be here at 12:30. But as far as
the only difference I would make that is I would have meat and potato pie instead of steak pie. Everything else is bang up, mushy peas, gravy. First thing you have.
Exactly. But also, there's nothing tastes better than a bacon buddy at my mom's on the Warby's white toasty bread with some brown sauce, butter, and good old English bacon. You just can't repeat that. It's just, I don't know. I can't seem to replicate that here.
No, you can't. Do you prefer black pudding with your full English? Is that your second meal you have or your third meal over there?
I very rarely have a full English over here with all the trimmings, like a black pudding, beans, mushrooms, all that kind of stuff. Every now and again, I might put something like that together. But again, when I come home to England, that's something I typically search out. And yeah, you can't put enough on my English breakfast. Like definitely the black pudding, definitely the baked beans, the mushrooms, just load it up. I'm in.
Well, I'm there. I'm right behind you. Okay, would you prefer a Miller High Life or Aki Ale?
Describe a little bit more about Aki Ale. Are you talking just like a good pint of bitter from a local?
Yeah, it's like a bitter. Yeah, it's like a bitter.
It's a bowl of brewery in Clitheroe.
Yeah.
Yeah, without even tasting it, I'd definitely choose the Aki Ale. Just, Miller Lite is, it's good on a hot day. You get it in a really cold glass, frozen glass kind of thing. But apart from that, it's, pretty much fizzy water.
I don't mean. If you were could have been a pro athlete in the States, what sport would you think you would have been a pro athlete at?
I guess we're saying the MLS isn't around, or one of the typical American sports. I was pretty good at cricket, so I probably would have gravitated towards baseball.
Yeah. Okay. Now, do you own a flashlight or a torch?
I have numerous flashlights in my house because no one can ever seem to find the torch when I ask for
it. Yeah, they come out with those tiki torches or something like that, probably.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's torch is a word I don't say too much now. It's one of those. If I ask my kids to go and grab me a flashlight, they know what to do. If I ask them to grab them a torch, the garage would probably burn down.
Do you say aluminum or aluminium?
Oh, I'm always an aluminium guy, but I get hounded incessantly over here for saying that.
Yeah, that's.
I just spell it. I spell it out and say, here are the letters in the word. Now say it. So believe me, I've had lots of back and forth with that word. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Speaking of spelling, do you spell labor, color, favorite with a U?
I used to.
And does your spell
change anymore?
Your spell changes it, does it?
I actually have stopped. The main reason for that is when I first moved over here, I actually went back to college. So 20 years ago, as a 32-year-old, or whatever I was back then, I went and did my undergrad. So I quickly learned to write American. Otherwise, there's nothing worse than a 32-year-old getting red marks all over your homework. This is spelled incorrectly. And so we had some fun with the professors there, going back and forth on that stuff. But pretty much that set me on the path to just write American. It's I don't even think about it now. The U's are gone from my life.
And if you have now, I guess this is another different take on words. Is do you have a takeaway or do you have a takeout? And if so, what's your favorite?
It's takeout. Again, I'm Americanized. There's so many choices over here for that stuff. But I've literally recently, I'd say in the last 6 months, found a good Indian restaurant. It's about 15 minutes from my house, but it is probably the best I've had over here because they don't just. I think the American palate just doesn't readily take to the strong Indian food flavors. They'll say they like it, but then you order a few things on their behalf, and basically, what is this crap you've just kind of things. But so I have to say the Indian takeout is probably my favorite now that I've finally found one that's really good. I still really enjoy a good Indian.
The last one for me. Do you partake in the ponies, and do you go to the Saratoga Springs to see the Travers?
Yeah, I mean the Saratoga race course here is one of the oldest. I think it is the oldest thoroughbred race course in the country.
1863, I believe.
Yeah, yes, because they actually just opened a brand new clubhouse there with that name. But it's such a great thing to have in the town. It brings a lot of vibrancy in the summer. But just, it's one of those places, if you live right next to, it's right in the heart of Saratoga. It's not like you have to travel 20 minutes out of town to get to the race course. You can literally walk to it from downtown. Probably similar to like a Chester races. It's right in the heart of the town.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can just go for an hour during the day. You can make a full day out of it. You can, the wives can wear the dresses and the big hats, and you can get all fancied up. So it's just a really fun spot to have in your town. I can't say enough good things about it. It's a lot of fun.
Great. Thanks for doing that, Neil. That's it from me, Phil.
All right. Well, I think that it's fairly obvious why the rapid fire has become world famous, because Tony, you just really put a nice little personal twist on it each time, and I like how you take the time to make sure that each time you have it adjusted to the guest.
Phil, it only took me 5 minutes to do that.
I don't believe that for a minute.
Tony, were you there in 1863 on that first race?
Yeah,
I thought you might have been. I'll just get you back for my football joke. But right, okay, let's get back to football, Neil. So let's get back to Accrington Stanley. And
I was going to say, Darren, why don't you take the next question? Because we already touched on American sports before rapid fire. So let's go back to you, Darren.
Okay, let's get back to some real sport. The number one sport, football, soccer.
Exactly.
Okay, so you ended up joining Accrington Stanley, which must have been a good move for you at the time, Neil, when you joined Stanley. Yeah,
it was. I think I was definitely, I think it was 28, 29-ish when I joined. I've been a firefighter for quite some time at that point. There's Stanley Bridge. I don't know if you remember Peter Reich, who was quite an outspoken coach. Some might call him a loudmouth. Some might say he's just an outspoken guy, but he's a great guy, but very passionate and just very loud. He was a fun guy too, but he pulled me in at the end of the season, and made me go up to Bowerfold at Stanley Bridge to discuss whether we're going to sign a new contract and things like that. And I always remember I walked in and he used to call me Edo. He's like, Edo, great news. I'm like, oh, cool. You're going to give me a good contract and up my salary and things like that. He said, we've signed Jamie Bates from Warrington. I was like, what? What are you talking about? But Jamie at the time was, probably one of the best fullbacks in the league. So basically was saying, we're not going to renew your contract. So I can't remember who I called. It might have been Eric Ball directly. And I said, hey, what have you got going on at Accrington? I'd love, at this stage of my career to come back. I've always wanted to play for Stanley. And he said, yeah, go along, talk to the current manager at the time. Obviously, Stan Allen, right?
Yeah.
Was it Stan Allen, right? It's a long time ago. And Stan said, yeah, come down, do a few training sessions, see what we think. And yeah, pretty soon he was like, yeah, let's make this happen if you're up for it. And I did. It was so much fun to play for Accrington. Obviously, I was not getting towards the end of it. It turned out to be the end of my career there, just because I got the ACL injury. Stan played on the stand for a few games, and then Tony Greenwood came in after that. We played. I think it was like a season and a half under Tony, but I was just really enjoying my football playing for Stanley. When your career's going on one side of things, so everything's settled on that perspective, and you're old enough and wise enough at that age to just start really enjoying your football. And I had a great time playing there. I think I was playing fullback, maybe right and left back. I played in a back five, and I think the season, right towards the end of the season where I banged up my ACL, I think I was in double figures as far as goals from fullback. Because I'd sneak onto the back end of some crosses, and it was just a lot of fun. It was great playing for the fans. Just the history behind it, and growing up in Accrington, it was just. Great set of lads as well at the time. My only regret is I didn't get to play with, the old Accrington favourites. Obviously Paul Beck was in at the time. So I became good friends with Paul, which I believe his father lives in Rochester, New York, which I found out about 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. So when I moved up here, I basically reached out to Paul and said, yeah, if you want to get me meat and potato pies over to your dad, just let me know. I'm probably about 2.5 hours away from Rochester where we are.
So when you did come to finish with injury, unfortunately, at an early age, so is that the time when you went over to the US, Neil?
So I kind of not misdiagnosed, but my ACL wasn't completely snapped, and so I had scans on it, and they're like, well, you could just build up your quads around it, and some physical therapy, and you'll be fine. And it just never was right again. So it probably went on for about 18 months, and then I finally, the surgeon just said, we'll do a full ACL replacement. When he opened my knee up after the fight, he's like, hey, Neil, it wasn't snapped, but the thing was stretched. He said whatever millimeters it was. So that thing was never coming back anyway. So it was a little annoying at the time because, prematurely had to sort of finish at that time. I could have got back from the surgery and carried on playing. But that's the time that coincided with me considering the move over to the US. I actually met my future wife over in Ireland during that time. And, we kind of cross-Atlantic dated and ended up doing a summer over here doing a lot of rehab on my knee because obviously it was tough to be a firefighter when your knee's facing backwards kind of thing. So that really sealed the deal, and I made the move happen. So, I'm not saying it really finished my career because I probably could have come back for it once I had the surgery and worked my way back in. But it just coincided with moving to the States, and it was just a brand new part of my life where, like I say, I went back to college. You can't really do anything over here job-wise unless you have a 4-year degree, a college or university degree. Even to get a sales job over here, they're asking what 4-year degree do you have kind of thing. So it made sense for me to go back to school, 32-year-old and with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds in a college class. I was the geek at the front asking all the questions, people throwing pencils at me. Get that old guy to shut up. We're trying to get out of here, But I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I went on I got my undergrad. I actually did it in 2.5 years. Came out with top honors because I was used to working, and then, from that, I went knocking on doors and actually landed up in Boston's financial district working on trading desks. So I just cut my teeth there, which just total 180 as far as career moves, obviously. Now I have my MBA and, firmly entrenched in the finance industry for the last 15, 16 years. And it was a great move.
Right. So you've quite a lot in common with our other co-host here, Tony. So he's very much in the financial side of things, right, Tony?
Yes, I'm well into that. All I know is that my pension check comes in once a month. After that,
there you go.
But I wanted to. I'm interested. with you living in the States and obviously with the time difference. How do you find following Stanley? Is it something that you do on a regular basis? Do you get to see them on the iFollow, or how do you keep up to date with the results?
Yeah, I mean, with two kids and their schedules and, my work schedule, it's tough to follow like the live games or, that kind of thing. I'm always logging on to BBC Football on the internet, and I kind of follow them that way. I'll read up on, some of the articles and the match reports, but it's over here, obviously all the Premier League games are they're all over that, but it's really tough to, unless you go online and start, following the games that way. It's tough to see them live. But Facebook, I've joined groups like this on Facebook, so that's probably where I follow, the actual, see the goals and the incidents that way, and read the reports. So that's really kept me. It's really kept me abreast of what's going on. More snippets now versus taking the time to watch live games and things like that. I do miss match of the day for that perspective.
Yeah, I was just going to say we tried to post on the North American Accrington Stanley Supporters Club. We try to post on interviews, match highlights, and things like that. Because I know. Exactly. Night matches for people, it's mid-afternoon and people are working. They can't always have time to see that. Right. So the one I just wanted to wrap up by asking, I asked Jimmy Bell this question, and I just wondered what your thoughts were on this, is which would be the bigger story if Leicester won the Premier League, but if Stanley got into the Championship, which would be the bigger story, do you think, for from a sports point of view?
From a pure sports point of view, I just, how can it not be Stanley being promoted to the Championship? Just because if you're a true sportsman, especially over in the UK, and Accrington's story, the first team to go bankrupt in the professional leagues back in the 60s, and the way they've clawed their way back over decades. And, it's, when they first got back in, obviously I followed them and was excited for them. When they first got back into the professional leagues, in the old Division 4, you're kind of wondering, okay, how long is this going to last? And are they going to get back down to non-league? But they've just shined from there and gone on and on. And now for them, for you to be in, the first division, the new first division, I guess, as they call it, and being pretty entrenched in it and kind of making a run for the Championship. Not just this season or last season. They're kind of contenders now, as I see them. I think for them to get into a Championship would be a huge story. Leicester winning the Premier League back then was bigger over here because, obviously I'm the guru to my friends as far as soccer's concerned. Can you believe Leicester? It's a real giant killing. And it was very, very much talked about, but not many of them have heard about Stanley from that perspective. But I think just from a worldly sport, perspective, I think Stanley winning or going to the Championship or even getting to the Premier League one day would just be just an unbelievable story.
Yeah,
it'd be fantastic.
Phil always says there's going to be a Netflix series sometime. So
there's going to be. I mean, at some point in time, there's going to have to be where somebody's going to look back at whether they make it to the Championship or not. Look back at 4 promotions in 20 years and just the size of the club. I mean, it's just too good of a story not to tell.
Yeah, exactly. I am interested. What was Jimmy Bell's answer?
It's the same as you. Exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And sure. I think most of the people that are Stanley, followers and fans and would agree with that, because it's knowing the history of, like you touched on, the club going out of business in 1962. and I was around for that, Darren. So by the way, and then coming back, climbing all up to League One, and pinch, you pinch yourself when you're playing. I mean, we've got a match coming up on Saturday against Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, crying out loud,
wow.
Yeah, so that says it all to me. But anyway, I mean, I thought it's been great to chat with you today, Neil. You've been a great sport, and appreciate. There's still you're not totally Americanized, so there's we can still have some fun when we talk about the different.
I don't know what that was supposed to mean.
He's like me. We're both we're from England, and we're North American now, or Canadian.
Yeah, no, it's true, unfortunately. But yeah, it looks like I'm here to stay as well. But it's truly been a pleasure, and really appreciate being invited onto the show. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, I'd love to do this again sometime.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Neil. And next time you're over in Accrington, you have to come to a game, and I'll buy you a pint. Come and see Stanley as they are today.
I have.
It'll be the first.
Brought some American. I was going to say I have been to a Stanley game since I've lived over here, and I actually brought some American visitors, and they all tested the meat and potato pies at the ground. And,
excellent.
Yeah, that might have been a one and done for some of them, but it's they've experienced it, and no one can take that away from them. So
exactly,
I can't wait to get over there and have a famous pie and an Aki ale myself. I mean, that's what I'm really looking forward to. It. And Neil, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show with us today. And I'm glad we got to talk a little bit of baseball as well as football with you today. And definitely we'd love to have you out again in the future. And we always like to finish up with an on Stanley on. So if everybody's ready, here we go. 1, 2, 3. On Stanley on.
On Stanley on. Cheers, Neil.
Cheers, Neil.
Thanks so much. Bye, fella.
Have a great one.